Sister Mary had always been troubled by vivid nightmares and strange occurrences in her sleep. She would wake up drenched in sweat, screaming and crying, with no memory of what had caused such terror. She tried to dismiss it as just bad dreams, but deep down she knew that there was something more sinister at play. As Sister Mary entered her sleep paralysis episodes, she was visited by a grotesque, spider-like creature that seemed to convulse and grow in intensity as it drew closer to her face. She was terrified and struggled to escape, but her body was completely immobile. As the creature reached her, the shadows of the room would fill with twisted faces, groaning silently. Sister Mary had no idea what any of this meant, but she knew that it couldn't be good. One day, Sister Mary confided in her friend, Sister Joan, about the strange occurrences in her sleep. Sister Joan, who was deeply spiritual, believed that Sister Mary was being visited by a higher being that was trying to communicate with her. Sister Mary was skeptical, but she couldn't deny the strange things that were happening to her. Sister Joan suggested that Sister Mary seek the help of a group of spiritual advisors who could help her understand the messages that the higher being was trying to convey. Sister Mary was hesitant at first, but she knew that she needed to find out what was happening to her. As she delved deeper into the mystery of the entity that was haunting her, Sister Mary discovered that her family had a dark history of abuse and trauma. She began to suspect that the creature was a manifestation of these ancestral wounds, and that her nightmares and sleep paralysis were a way for it to communicate with her. Determined to break the cycle of suffering, Sister Mary began to face her fears and confront the creature head-on. She worked with the spiritual advisors, who taught her how to channel her energy and harness the power of the entity that was haunting her. As she worked to heal the wounds of the past, Sister Mary realized that the twisted faces she saw during her sleep paralysis episodes were actually the ghosts of her ancestors, trying to guide her on her journey towards healing. She began to understand that the entity was not an enemy, but a manifestation of the pain and trauma that had been passed down through her family for generations. With the help of the spiritual advisors, Sister Mary began to work on healing these wounds and releasing the hold that the entity had on her. It was a long and difficult process, but she was determined to overcome it. But as she delved deeper into her own past, Sister Mary began to uncover a dark and sinister secret about her family. She discovered that her ancestors had been involved in a cult, worshipping a malevolent deity that demanded human sacrifices. Sister Mary was horrified to realize that the entity haunting her was actually the manifestation of this deity, and that it had been using her as a conduit to communicate with the living world. As Sister Mary struggled to come to terms with this revelation, the entity began to grow more powerful, exerting its influence on her every waking moment. She became more and more isolated, cut off from the outside world as the entity consumed her soul. Sister Mary began to experience strange and disturbing visions, filled with images of death and destruction. She saw the faces of her ancestors, twisted and distorted with hate and malice. She heard their voices, urging her to embrace the entity and join them in their worship of the malevolent deity. But Sister Mary was determined to resist. She knew that if she gave in to the entity, she would be lost forever. She turned to her faith for strength and guidance, praying for the courage to stand against the entity. As she struggled to overcome the malevolent influence of the entity, Sister Mary began to receive strange messages from an unknown source. They were cryptic and obscure, but she sensed that they held the key to defeating the entity once and for all. Determined to unravel the mystery, Sister Mary began to investigate the messages, piecing together a cryptic puzzle that led her deeper and deeper into the dark history of her family. She discovered that her ancestors had stumbled upon an ancient relic, a powerful talisman that could grant them immense power and control over the forces of entity. But the price of this power was steep. The talisman demanded human sacrifice, and those who wielded its power were consumed by its malevolent influence. Sister Mary realized that the entity haunting her was the manifestation of the talisman's power, and that it was trying to use her to reclaim its lost strength. Desperate to stop the entity, Sister Mary knew that she had to find the talisman and destroy it. She set out on a journey to uncover the truth, following the cryptic messages and delving deeper into the dark secrets of her family's past. As she searched, Sister Mary encountered many dangers and obstacles, but she refused to give up. She knew that the fate of the world was at stake, and that she was the only one who could stop the entity from reclaiming its power. Finally, after many months of searching, Sister Mary located the ancient talisman, hidden away in a forgotten tomb. She knew that she had to destroy it, but she also knew that doing so would come at great cost. With a heavy heart, Sister Mary approached the talisman, steeling herself for the sacrifice that she knew was necessary. As she touched the ancient relic, she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins. She knew that she had made the right decision, and that her sacrifice would save countless lives. As the talisman shattered into pieces, Sister Mary felt the malevolent influence of the entity fade away. She knew that her journey was at an end, and that she had finally triumphed over the entity. Breathless and exhausted, Sister Mary collapsed to the ground, feeling a sense of peace and contentment wash over her. But as she closed her eyes, she suddenly heard a voice whisper in her ear. "Well done, Sister Mary," the voice hissed. "You have proven yourself worthy of serving me. Welcome to my ranks, my loyal servant." Sister Mary's eyes flew open in horror as she realized that the entity had not been defeated at all. It had merely been using her to regain its power, and now it planned to use her as a conduit for its malevolent influence. With a sudden surge of energy, Sister Mary tried to stand up, determined to fight against the entity. But it was too late. The entity had already consumed her soul, and she was powerless to resist. As she was dragged into the depths of entity, Sister Mary knew that she had made a terrible mistake. She had thought that she was saving the world, but in reality, she had only served to bring about its destruction.
Ut ecclesiam tuum secura tibi facies libertate servire, te rogamus, audi nos. Ut inimicus sancte ecclesiae humiliare dimiris, te rogamus, audi nos. In Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.